I can see there are a few of you online at the moment. We've just had a few little glitches, but it looks like we've managed your student ID in the chat function. If you can do that for us, that would be really helpful, just so we can record your attendance. So just a little Zoom keeping for today. Please make sure that your sound is muted and the video is off at the moment. We will be using the chat tool for some questions and answers, but we'll also use the microphone and the video camera later on throughout the session. So make sure you know where that is so that we can utilise it. And I also encourage you to have a pen and paper ready to make some notes. We'll be talking about quite a few things today, and I'm hopeful that you'll walk away with quite a few tips. So acknowledgement of the traditional owners. QUT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nation owners of the land where QUT now stands. I pay respect to the elders, laws, customs and creation spirits and recognise that these lands have always been places of teaching, research and learning. I acknowledge the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within our community. So before we begin, just to give you a quick wrap of GRED, so hopefully you all know who we are, but we are the Graduate Research, Education and Development team, a little bit of a mouthful, but our job is to curate online offerings for you as our students to advance your career, advance your research, to lead your career and to engage with industry. Now, the advantage of the work that we have done as a team here at QUT is that we've identified the top 20 HDR graduate skills. Now, that's for both academia and industry related careers. And these top 20 skills, I guess, give you a bit of a guide as to what it is that employers are looking for in addition to the research that you have as a HDR graduate. So if you haven't participated in the skills assessment, just for your own knowledge to know where do you lie in terms of the skills that are expected from employers and where are the gaps for you, then you'll see the link below. It does give you a guide to that link to the skills assessment. And the bonus of that skills assessment is that each of those skills are then linked to offerings that we provide our QUT HDR students free of charge in terms of professional development. So there's quite an advantage there, and from my understanding, we're one of the only universities in Australia that provide this skill development for students. Now, welcome to our session, Virtual Networking for Career Success. Final reminder that if you haven't popped your student number in, if you can pop it in the chat, that would be wonderful. Now, I can see some familiar names and faces, so it's lovely to have you all back on board. I have 3 goals for us today. So what I'd like to do is help you to better understand virtual networking. All right, and we'll talk a bit about that today. I'd like to help you learn how to build your network and what that looks like as a HDR student. And I'd like to help you understand how to increase that connection. So I guess those questions that students often ask, well, once I have a network, what do I do with them? So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Now, what's important for today is the learning process. So I'll actually get Ola if she's there. Ola is in the background supporting me today. So if there are any questions that you have throughout and I'm busy chatting away, feel free to send that through to Ola. She comes through as Alexandra and she'll be just providing the support in the background. But the learning process for today is that I will share some content with you. We will be utilising breakout rooms because I want to bring networking to life. And right now, networking is online exactly as we're doing right now. So we'll participate in some learning as a large group. We'll then break out into small groups using the breakout function. And in order to do that, what will happen is you will receive a link like this that says join. Now, what you'll need to do to join is click on your unmute and start video, which means that your face comes up, the people within your breakout group can hear you, and it might just take a little bit of time, so be patient for everyone's faces to come up and to hear everybody. Now, in some groups I run, everyone jumps in the breakout groups and they really have a fantastic time. So I encourage you to jump online today and click that join button because it's really useful to hear the views of your peers and to bounce ideas with your peers. Okay, so that's the process for today, and we'll be doing that twice throughout today's session. So how comfortable are you with networking? Well, interestingly, the number of HDR students I speak to, most will say they're not very comfortable or they prefer to be chased by a lion. So what I'm hoping out of today is that you don't feel that way, or you don't feel as intense around negative experiences around networking, that you actually feel that little bit more confident because you understand the process and the steps for networking. So we'll talk through the process of networking today and hopefully make you feel a little bit more comfortable. Now, utilising the chat function, can I get you all to just pop in the chat function? What stage of candidature are you? So are you, and let's use like even I'm first year, I'm in the middle, or I'm in my final year. Those three would be really useful for me. So if you can open up your chat function and type in for me, first year MPhil, oh yeah, PhD, great. Week 3, oh goodness. Final year, first month, welcome. Final year, great to have some final years, that's excellent. Second year, trying not to be final year. Excellent. Some first year MPhil, some more first years, second or middle years. All right, so we've got a nice combination in this group. That's great. That's great. Okay, so that's really helpful for me just to talk across that stretch or continuum of candidature. Okay, lovely. All right, so let's jump in and explore why networking is important right now. Now, I'm curious to hear straight away from you. So we're going to utilise that chat function again. But what I'm going to do is have an attempt at annotating the content so that you can see what people's comments are as well, and we can just bring them to life. So from your perspective, why do you think networking is important right now, and therefore you're on this call? Pop it in the chat for me and I'll put it on our page. Okay, so we've got some connect with people who might give me a job. That's a fair enough point. Broaden research. Oh, you're going fast. I'm just going to have to stop on adding that. Collaboration, share ideas, help to find the right information. Yes, that's really good. Collaboration, meet like-minded people. Co-authoring, interesting, that's great. Okay, so there's quite a few different reasons there. Sharing ideas, building connections, broadening research, research impact, learning. Okay, I'm not going to add them to the page because you've all already added those all in the function there. So they're really, really valid points, and I think they tie in with what I will share with you now. So in terms of why is networking important right now from a global perspective, I guess the ACOLA review, which this review looked at graduate employment of HDR students and their trajectories and their step into early career research and or early career opportunities. They've identified in 2016 that less than 20% of PhD graduates were gaining academic positions. Okay, which is really quite small considering quite a few of the students at the time were identifying that they were looking at an academic career. Okay, so that's one reason why I think networking is actually important right now, because the career trajectory that perhaps you were thinking might be your only option in terms of an academic career may actually not be an available or realistic option right now in terms of future employment. over the next couple of years. Let's see what else has happened. Obviously, we've bumped into COVID-19, which is a pretty big bump right now. And what we're seeing is that universities are freezing recruitment. Small businesses are closing, the ones that can't survive in this environment, and online demands are increasing. So people are asking or requiring businesses to transform into that online space. So these are, again, reasons why we need to contemplate this networking space, because the job market is significantly changing. In addition to that, 80% of jobs are typically not advertised, or if they are advertised, generally the interview panel already know a little bit about a few candidates and already have them earmarked for the interview process. Now that's not because of COVID-19, that's just the way the world works, that as often as possible, if the recruitment process doesn't need to happen, then organisations will utilise referrals or people they know, or people who've been on small projects that can then transition into more full-time employment or part-time employment opportunities. So these are key things we need to understand. And the last point I'll make is that change is happening really quickly. And because change is happening really quickly, I think our networks are really critical in terms of keeping us informed of what is coming up ahead. Okay, now is this page presenting doom and gloom? No, it doesn't look positive. It can be a bit concerning. I think the key thing is we're in a real space of change right now, and probably will be for the next 2 to 3 years. So therefore, what do we need to be mindful of? Flexibility and transferability is going to be key. Okay, now this isn't just to do with the networks, this is general, and I think just really important to share with you that no matter what your research area is, your specific research project, you're going to need to learn how to be really flexible in terms of employment opportunities. You're going to need to really be transferable in your skills, so knowing what skills you have and how they can transfer across discipline, across industry, across sector, in order to get your foot in the door, to utilise those experiences and demonstrate more skills and experience in order to maybe come full circle back to the career that you are hoping to be involved in. Okay, so as I've got on the image there, it's a little bit more like a jungle gym in terms of career development. There are no ladders, okay? There are no ladders right now. So it's about being really flexible in your thinking about, oh, maybe I need to explore this option, or maybe I could utilise this skill in this role in order to continue my development during candidature, but also in terms of graduate employment. The second thing is just broadening your awareness of opportunities. Now, how do we do that? We do that through our networks, and that's why I think networking is really important. Okay, our networks, as in the people that we connect with, can help us stay informed of what opportunities are around. Now, not only that, but the process of networking is also a form of self-promotion. So the more we keep in conversation and connection with people about our skills, our interests, and our experience, the more people remember your name or your skill set and can call on you when opportunities arise. And that does regularly happen. So it's really important to be focused on. So what is networking? I guess we should really start with a little bit of a definition. I think that a good definition is that networking is about building meaningful connections, okay, with people on topics of mutual interest that have the potential to lead to future career opportunities, research collaborations, and job prospects. I will raise this time and time again with whatever networking webinars I deliver, because I think it's really important to reflect on the fact that it's about building meaningful connections, not just numbers, not just getting 500 contacts, but building meaningful connections on topics of mutual interest with a range of potentials. And notice that the opportunity is not about getting a job. Now, it is an end outcome. It will, fingers crossed, happen as part of the process, but it's an end product. It's not the game. It's the end game, but it's not the game. Okay, so it's important for us to work on the process of the game, which is building your network. So what is virtual networking? Well, I'd probably say very similarly, it's about building meaningful connections with people, but via virtual networking platforms, events, or tools to do the same thing on topics of mutual interest that have the potential to lead to a range of opportunities. Okay, so the only core difference is that virtual networking is via the virtual platforms. Now, is this new? No, this is not new. This has been going on for quite a number of years now, but because we've been in the face-to-face environment, we typically haven't made the most of the online space in order to build and maintain connections. Okay, so for me, the advantage of this current world that we're in is that it's going to really drive us to build our online skills so that when we are back face to face, we're armed with both our face-to-face skills and our online skills, which really will help us advance forward in terms of our career. Okay, so in regards to virtual networking, let's actually do some. I'm just having a look at the numbers. We have 31 participants on board, and I'm hopeful that everyone will join the breakout room and just introduce themselves. Now, why is this important? Because this is networking. Although I'm not going to ask you to sit and talk about heaps of things, I'm going to guide you in the process so that you get practice at doing online networking. All right, so here's the purpose of this breakout room. I'm going to ask you to share your name and the faculty you're from, 1 to 2 sentences on what the research topic is. Now, that doesn't mean the research heading that might be in high-level jargon that the rest of your group may have no clue what you're talking about, okay? So scientists, remember, you could have a person from health in your space that doesn't understand what you're talking about. And education students, be mindful, you might have an engineer who doesn't understand what you're talking about. Okay, so I want you to try and make the language as generic as possible so that people understand what your topic is about, but also then what you believe the potential impact of your research is going to be or what you're hoping it's going to be. All right, so what's going to happen is in just a moment, Ola is going to set up the breakout rooms. She's going to invite you to join, and your job will be to press join, unmute yourself and start your video. Okay, I'll hand over to Ola and you guys have 10 minutes to introduce yourselves.
All right, here we come. Hi, Grecha. Do you have a better connection now? Can you join the room? I noticed you had some problems at the beginning.
Those of you who are still in the main room, I just thought I'd say hi, because otherwise you might be sitting there on your own. If you are not able to join the room just because of your current environment, that's totally fine, not a problem at all. Feel free to chat to me while I'm sitting here, either via the chat function if you want to introduce yourself, or pop your camera on and chat to me here. We're just going to give the breakout rooms just 2 more minutes to finish, and then we'll come back together as a main group. Thanks, Ola. Okay, Ola, if you don't mind closing the breakout rooms, that will give them 60 seconds to finish up anyway. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, it looks like people are coming back through from their breakout room. As you do join us from your breakout room, can you just give us some feedback as to whether that was useful to meet your peers? Even just put a Y for yes, that was useful, or no, I needed more time, or no, there was too much time. It'd be great to hear your feedback. Okay, looks like most people through the chat enjoyed being in the breakout room and connecting with people. Oh, some people couldn't turn their video on. That's fair enough. That happens at times. Turned off by the host. Okay, I'll have to check that, Marcia. More time would have been great, okay? It wasn't as scary as you thought. That's great. I'm really pleased because I think sometimes we do get nervous about what is it going to be like going into the breakout room and how do I set it up, and people want a few more minutes. That's wonderful. So I think people do get a little bit nervous, and that's part of the unknown. What's it going to be like in this virtual space? But again, the more we practice, the more we experience, the more we get to know our peers, we realize that we're all on the same page, and you know, your peers will be part of your future network, even though you may not think of it now because they're cross-discipline, cross-industry. But if the world is turning to more cross-discipline, cross-industry work, then you're going to be getting used to connecting with different people across different areas. So well done, and thank you for sharing and participating. So I guess that leads us to the question around why you're networking, because what I found is most people get very nervous about networking because they're not sure of what the purpose is. You know, if it's not about getting a job, because no one's just going to hand you a job because you've asked for one. If it's not about just meeting people, what is the purpose? So I'll give you 3 tips as to what I think 3 purposes are of networking as a HDR student and graduate. Number 1, it's about learning something. All right, so you might be wanting to network because you want to learn about some content to do with the area that you're interested in, the research area that you're in, or areas that sit just outside of your research area so that you can broaden your horizons. You might want to learn more about the context of the work that you're looking to move into, or the context of the industry that you're looking to work in. You might want to learn people's perspectives around different things to do with your research, or just outside your research, or just within the industry that you're wanting to work in. Okay, so one of the purposes of you networking, and this can ebb and flow depending on events, time of year, days, doesn't matter, but one of the purposes could be that you want to learn something. The second purpose of networking might be that you want to share something. So you want to share some information with people. Maybe you've come across something amazing in terms of your research or in terms of an article. You want to share that content with someone. You want to share an idea with someone or with other people. Or you want to share your perspective on how the world is going in terms of your research, your area, your industry, your discipline. Okay, and there's a range of things, ways that you can connect with people to share those ideas. And those ideas might even be simply that, you know, someone's posted an article on something that's of real interest to you, but you can see a different way of looking at it based on your skill set. And so you can share perspectives and ideas. And that could be the purpose for you networking. Now, a third reason for networking is simply to collaborate. So that is, connecting with people and sharing ideas or solving problems, either as a group or as part of your research, or collaborating with people in terms of your research in order to gain more participants for your research. So these for me are the three reasons why we network. There's multiple more, but I think we can kind of cluster them into these three areas. Am I wanting to learn something? Am I wanting to share something? Am I wanting to collaborate on something? And it might be all three on occasions, or it might just be one for a specific purpose. So it's worth you reflecting on what is it for you so that you feel that little bit more confident. So I'm going to ask you to pause on your own now, just for 2 minutes. I don't even have any thinking music, but I'm not good at singing, so I won't sing for you. But what I'm going to ask you to do is, with pen and paper or just in your own space, take the next 1 to 2 minutes to reflect on why are you networking right now? Okay. Is it to do with learning? Is it to do with sharing? Or is it to do with collaborating? Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. Think and write a few notes. Okay, that's about 1:30 minutes of thinking. All right, again, can you share with me in the chat function, for you right now, what is the main focus of networking for you? Is it around learn? Is it around share? Is it around collaborate? Let's see it in the chat function. Got a few learns come up here. Okay, learning, learning, sharing, good. Learning and collaborating. Learn and collaborate, learn and share. Okay, so we've got a lot of learn coming through. Learning from others. Awesome. Learn and share. Oh, great. Yes, learning, connecting with others who've written articles and papers. Carla, I think you've just joined us. Thanks for joining us. Jump on in. Collaborating is a big factor. Yes, we're just talking about learning, sharing, collaborating as a purpose for networking, rather than stepping into networking and not knowing. That's great. Sharing perspectives. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay. I'm not going to do the breakout room for that one. I'll run short of time. So first key thing is know what networking is. Second is, why are you networking? Third is, what are the types of networking opportunities out there? All right. So here are a few for you to contemplate. You can network in everyday interactions. Okay. Just in everyday conversations with people, you are networking, because remember, networking is about building meaningful connections and letting people know who you are. It's a bit of self-promotion, it's a bit of learning or sharing or collaborating. Okay, you can network with university peers. So thinking about opportunities with your peers, maybe there's HDR student society that you can be involved in that have some online networking opportunities. Again, a networking opportunity might just be a presentation like this, where you get to use the breakout rooms to connect with your peers and practice the process of networking. QUT events such as these, and I'm sure there's a range of QUT events you're already attending. Industry-specific events. So I'm hopeful that each of you are a member of the professional association that's related to the area of discipline that you're doing your research in. And they will most likely have conferences or programs or small webinars that, again, you can be part of and get to network and connect with people. Internships, which is a huge space for HDR students, getting the opportunity to have an internship and then build your networks through the people that you meet through your internship. And through LinkedIn groups, so jumping on LinkedIn and connecting via different groups that might be related to areas that you're interested in. Now, there are millions of others, but they're just some to draw your attention to the fact that there are a range of virtual networking opportunities that can also become face-to-face when we go back to face-to-face experiences. So there are many out there. But let's have a good look at online conferences and events, because a lot of people do ask me, what do I do in this online space? So let me share some tips for you. First of all, we're going to talk a little bit about connecting before the event, okay? It's important to connect during the event, and it's also even more important to connect after the event. Now, what do we actually do? Because I know you're probably sitting on this webinar thinking, yes, but how do I connect before? Like, what do I do? Well, here's 3 tips. Share the event on your LinkedIn page. Okay, so go to the conference LinkedIn page or website or whatever app they have for running the conference and promoting it, and share that on your LinkedIn page. Not only share it on your LinkedIn page, but post something, post a comment about it. I'm looking forward to attending the such and such conference. That lets people know that you're interested in it. Post on the conference page. So if the conference has a LinkedIn page themselves, post on their page that you're looking forward to the conference. Again, all that does is just builds connection, lets people see your name and face, if you've got a photo on your LinkedIn page, promotes you a little, but also lets other people know that the event is on because you've shared the event. So it becomes a give and take process, which is what networking is all about. It's about building a relationship, which is to and fro. Okay, so they're just some tips. In those posts, you can use the hashtags, whatever the hashtag is for the conference, or hashtags that you're already following that you can keep connected. So think about different ways you can connect before the event, which generally when we do face-to-face, we don't do that very often. But here's your opportunity now. What about during the event? First of all, turn your camera on as often as you can, unless obviously the host asks you to switch cameras off, but have your camera on. Say hi in the chat. So introduce yourself. I'm Georgia from QUT within the grad team as the HDR careers educator. Beautiful. And other people will add their introductions. Post a question or make a comment through the Zoom function that the facilitator has set up. Okay, again, just ways of connecting, showing your interest, of which people look at those questions and reflect on, and set up good lighting. Okay, so make sure that you're not, with your camera down here, looking down somewhere, that you've actually got the camera set up well, you've got a decent amount of light on you, and you're presented as professionally as possible. Okay, and it might sound funny, but I've seen a number of people on webinars and you can tell that they have their pajama shirt on, or you can tell that they've got a work shirt and it's not ironed. So all of these things are about your professional reputation, okay, which is what networking is about, building your professional reputation through the connections that you have across groups and people and settings. Now, the last piece is around connecting after the event. What can you do after the event? Or one tip is connect with speakers of interest. So whatever speakers were at the conference, finding ways to connect with them afterwards. Connect with participants of interest. Okay, so this is where you pay attention not only to the speaker who's speaking, but those participants who ask interesting questions or respond in interesting ways that you think, oh, actually, I might like to connect with them. Make sure you're writing down the names of those people so that you can then connect with them on LinkedIn after the event. Okay, so speakers and participants. And after the event, post a comment on your LinkedIn page, you know, saying how great the conference was and for what reasons, and perhaps that it was great to meet this person and this person, and put them in there and tag them in your post. So they're just some nice little ways that you can start the ball rolling. Now, obviously, I could speak to you for 2 or 3 hours on how to do this to the nth degree, but I think what we need is just some really handy, easy tools that we can put into place rather than think of the, 20-point checklist. Otherwise, we're not going to be engaging in the conference and learning anyway. So here, these are some tips, okay? Now, I find that students sometimes struggle with that whole connect piece and keep asking me, well, what does it mean? What do I do? So let's talk a little bit about that. Connecting is around following up with participants. Now, this is particularly after an online conference or event. It's following up with participants or following up with people that you've connected with. Maybe you've connected with face-to-face in different environments, but it's about following up with people who you think may have mutual interest in the areas that you're interested in. Critical to connecting is to update your LinkedIn profile. I implore you to have a look at your LinkedIn profile. Okay, now why do I say that? Because I'll tell you that at least 90% of employers will look at someone's LinkedIn profile before they get to interview. Okay, I will tell you that if any student asks me if I have a connection with someone in some certain industry that might be able to help them bridge the gap or start learning a bit more, I will look at their LinkedIn profile. If their LinkedIn profile doesn't promote them enough, I'll be going back to the student saying, hey, you need to step up your profile. It needs to look professional so that you have a really good first impression with the person that you're connecting with. Okay, so I will send you some links around setting up your LinkedIn profile to be compelling, to be able to have that 90-second first impression grab for someone who's looking at it. But it is critical. It's a key piece in terms of your ability to network. And primarily because if you meet someone and they say, oh, John, it was so good to meet Mary the other day, John will go looking at Mary's LinkedIn profile because he has that's a perfect way to look at someone's profile and see what their story is. Okay, so really important to invest some time into that. The last thing you can do in terms of connecting, particularly after an event, but even for people who haven't met someone yet and have a new cold contact. So someone they haven't met that they would like to meet or connect with, you can request an informational interview. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that today as well. So informational interviews are just an opportunity to interview someone that you're interested in to learn. Okay, it's primarily about that learn phase that I spoke about earlier. So to learn about some content, to learn about context, to learn about perspectives, to learn about industry, to learn about how they made steps forward in terms of their career, to hear their perspectives on how COVID is impacting the discipline or the industry or the sector that they're currently working in. Okay, so it's a big learn space, and I think it's a really underutilized skill that HDR students could utilize. So let's have a look at those last two pieces as core learning pieces, all right? So I mentioned about LinkedIn. Let me give you some tips to do with LinkedIn. And I think I've already raised this, that 90% of employers and collaborators will review people using LinkedIn before they decide whether to meet them or not. How do you use LinkedIn? You use it to promote yourself. So sharing posts or making comments, that's a nice simple way. At the far end of the continuum, you could be promoting yourself by writing your own articles or blog and posting that in your LinkedIn profile. Okay, but very simply, you could be just taking someone else's post, sharing that in your profile, in your post, and making a comment about it. Thanks to so-and-so for sharing this. I found this piece really insightful. It could be just as simple as that. How else could you use your LinkedIn profile? Well, follow up with speakers, participants, colleagues, someone you bumped into. So there's the follow-up concept. There's also the introduce yourself concept to someone new. So you may just see through your post that there's someone new that's really interesting, has written an article of interest. You can still introduce yourself to that person, okay? And that's a really simple way to just have a conversation around, I saw your article on LinkedIn and I was really grateful to learn about such and such, or I hear that you're doing some work in this area. My research is in this space that links to this, but we're utilising this process to analyse this. Okay, so it's really about, remember at the beginning I was saying about being flexible. It's really about thinking flexibly about, all right, what's out there? What do I know? Who do I want to connect with? And how do I go about connecting with them? Important. When you connect with someone on LinkedIn, don't just press the connect button. Okay, ask to connect by writing a little personal note. So you need to get in, if you don't already have good skills in LinkedIn, you need to get in and do some LinkedIn learning to understand the LinkedIn process. But you're typically clicking on the more button, then the connect button, and then there's an add note. Why? Because it's more personable. And if you're wanting to build a meaningful connection with someone on a topic for future opportunities, then you don't want to be the person who just says, hey, I'd like to connect with you. And that's pretty much what the default message says if you just press the connect button, okay? Instead, you want to be popping in there, hi, John, it was great to meet you, or it was great to hear you speak at the such and such conference or at this event. I was really interested in this. I'd love to connect.
Georgia, there's an interesting message from Carla about what you just said.
Sometimes I receive random invitations for connection. Like, do you think it's safe to accept them? Oh, thank you, Ola. Yeah, look, LinkedIn is a pretty safe setup. Often we can be hacked by people, but look, my philosophy, and everyone has to have their own philosophy around this. My philosophy is if I just get a random connection with no story as to how or why we're connecting, I decline. Why? Because I, like you, maybe Carla, you can receive 10 random connections just because some people are interested in building 500 connections or to promote or on-sell things. And that doesn't work for me. That's not what I call networking. That's not about building connections for a greater purpose. So I personally decline those. So that will tell you that if you decide after this session to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would expect that there will be a little bit of a story before I then press connect. Okay, so I hope that's useful, Carla. Thank you, Ola. That's a really, really good point. The second point here is to make sure your profile is ready to promote. So there's no point going out and doing all of this networking to meet all these people if your profile isn't ready. Okay, so you want to get in, get your profile up to date, get a good professional photo. Don't pay for it. Just use someone's iPhone with the portrait mode, with a clear background, nice and clean headshot, and get all the content in there. And again, I'll send you a link that gives you a YouTube video on how to set your LinkedIn profile up as a compelling professional profile. Okay, so they're just some key tips for you. Now, what about that topic that I raised before called informational interviewing? What is it and why is it so underutilised? Well, let's have a look. An informational interview is an informal conversation, face-to-face or online, could be either, in which you can seek advice about a role, an industry, someone's career trajectory. It goes on. Now, the benefits are that you find out firsthand the realities of working in the industry or in a particular role. The benefits are you learn about the career paths that you may not even know exist, or job opportunities that you may not know exist, or roles that you may not know exist. And it lets other people get to know you. So an informational interview, and again, I'll send you a link with some more information about it. But an informational interview is typically about asking someone, either following up or someone you don't know yet, but you know that you want to learn a bit more about them. And it's about sending them a note, usually using LinkedIn, to say, look, can you spare 15 minutes for a Zoom chat? As I'm currently a HDR student in my final year and really keen to learn about your career story or learn about the industry and how it's being impacted by COVID. Like, guys, you have a perfect segue there to have a reason why people might want to talk about the industry or where things are at. Okay, now most of the time, if you ask 15 minutes to 20 minutes tops, people will give you their time to have a conversation. It's probably even easier if you've already got a connection via LinkedIn based on an event or some way that you've already connected with them. Maybe you've shared a couple of their articles or their posts, and so you've already started to build a little bit of connection, and then boom, you're asking for an informational interview. Now, you don't have to call it an informational interview. That's just, I guess, the language that I use in terms of talking about the process. For you, it's a chat. If it was face-to-face, it would be a coffee. Okay, unfortunately, we can't do that. Maybe it's a virtual coffee. Maybe you want to get a little bit creative with it. But it's a great opportunity to meet and ask someone some questions. Typically, you'll probably get the time for about 3 questions about something that's of interest to you. Now, the lovely thing with this, which points to the last bullet point there about lets other people get to know you, is in most cases, the person on the other end will ask, so tell me a little bit about you. Now, this is where you need to have your little pitch ready. Not that you're pitching for a job, not that you're pitching to ask for something, but your pitch around, this is me, I'm a QUT, I'm currently researching this, I'm hoping the output's going to be this, but I've realised that I've got a broader skill set in these areas. So I'm just wanting to learn from people who are already in the industry. Nice and simple, plants the seed. And then you have the opportunity to connect with that person again. Or you might say, actually, I'm really interested in this part of your industry or your company. Do you have anyone else that I could contact to create another coffee chat with so I can learn a bit more? Okay. So I hope that's helpful for you in terms of informational interviewing. I have used it constantly. I still use it in my career now. So it's something that you can continue to use over time, because really it's about a coffee chat to learn more. And in the process, you often get to share a little bit, or you get to find a way of collaborating with people. All right, so that gives you a bit of an overview. So let's just summarize for the moment, because I've been talking for a bit now. We've talked about what networking is. We've talked about why it's of benefit. We've talked about what the purpose is of your networking and getting really clear about that. We've talked about what is it like to network in the virtual world and things you can do to connect before, during, and after. And both LinkedIn and informational interviewing are 2 core strategies for building your connection with people over time and maintaining networks and relationships. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out and interview 1 million people and, build a heap of connections and be posting on LinkedIn daily. But I guess as a rule of thumb, it would be ideal for you to start practicing now that you're jumping on LinkedIn twice a week for, let's say, 20 minutes, and you just start blocking that in your diary to jump in, to have a read, to connect with groups that are of interest, to share a post, to read some posts. I think it's just a useful process, and it's just part of your professional development. In terms of informational interviews, I'd probably say to you, if you're, no matter what year you're in, if you're conducting at least 4 informational interviews a year minimum, I think that's really useful, even just to be learning about different things. If you're getting towards your final year, you might be increasing that to 8 to 10 to 12, maybe even more, depending on the connections you have. But again, make them purposeful, okay, so that you're building a strong connection for the right reasons. Now, in summarising, I started this session by saying that I was hoping today what we were going to do is help you build a better understanding of virtual networking, help you learn how to build your networks through connecting before, during and after, and understand how to increase connection through utilising your LinkedIn and through utilising some informational interviewing. Now, as I said at the start, this is an hour webinar and it's quite bite-sized. So what I'll do is I'll send you a link after this webinar to the Blackboard page that we have that houses a lot of different resources on digital, online networking versus face-to-face networking, networking in an academic environment versus industry. I have a range of different links that will be really useful, and even questions that you could ask during an informational interview. So I'll send a link out and you will find them on our Grad Blackboard page under career development, but I'll send a direct link for you. And then if you're looking for some things coming up, we do have a webinar on sourcing an internship. So for those of you who are interested in gaining an internship during candidature, we'll be talking about that, how to source that yourself so that you can make it as meaningful as possible. On the 7th of September, we've got Building Resilience. And on the 7th of October, we have HDR job applications. So how to really build your CV and your cover letter to your advantage as you move forward towards graduate employment. In addition to this, I think over the next 3 months, we probably have about 50 different webinars and offerings across academic writing through all of the different skills that you will see on the skills wheel here on your right. So there's heaps there for you. But I'm going to pause because we do have 3 minutes left and maybe there is a question or two, and I'm really happy for you to jump on with your camera if you would like to, or pop it in the chat. Anybody?
Hi, Georgia. I wonder if you could provide some advice on how to, I guess I feel like there's a shortage of natural opportunities to kind of build that warm introduction to people in industry, since there's less whatever events happening, and I feel mostly connected into the academic event space. So I guess how to structure that first contact, whether it's like by email or by message on LinkedIn or whatever, to, I don't know, like I guess I feel like I'm going in blind a little bit in terms of how to make that approach in a way in which someone's likely to go, oh yeah, I'll give this person 20 minutes of my time. Like, it seems like a bit of a daunting step to take for me.
Yeah, understandable. And look, maybe it's about utilising your warm contacts first, but start thinking about who is in your network, okay? So I encourage all of you, grab a piece of paper, draw yourself in the middle, and then draw out from that circle who is in your warmest, your closest contacts, you know, and that might be a supervisor, that might be a co-supervisor, that might be a couple of peers. And I would go to them first and find out, do they have any connections to industry? Surely within our academic world, we have some connections to industry, or if your supervisor doesn't know anyone, do they know another supervisor who might have a connection to industry? Because eventually someone will know someone, which gives you a slightly better connection than just a random contact. Okay, so first step first, Owen, and for the rest of you is to try and build that connection first so that you've got that warm connection, and that just, I guess, that helps you leverage off. If you can't get that, then ideally you're looking for a bit of a referral. You know, so if someone does know someone, then you've got a referral to be able to say, you know, dear John, my supervisor, Professor so-and-so, recommended that I connect with you because I'm doing some research in this space and that might be of interest to you, and I'm curious to learn about your research area, something to that effect. You can send that as an email. Again, you'd want it to be a very short email. or you can do it via LinkedIn. People seem to be accepting of either, but email is fine to start that connection. In terms of cold contacts, I guess what I would say is I would warm up cold contacts by connecting with them via LinkedIn or via an event first. So find a way to connect with them. If there's someone that you haven't met yet that you think, oh, I'd really like to meet that person in industry, jump on their LinkedIn, find out what they're interested in, have a look at their posts, share their post, comment on their post, then start a question related to that post. So start making that cold connection that little bit warmer, and then have that conversation around sending a private message that says that you'd like to sneak 15 minutes of their time to be able to have a chat about a topic of mutual interest. Okay, so there's no perfect, there's no right or wrong, but it's about how do you warm up the cool contacts as much as possible so that there's a greater way to be able to step in. But I really encourage you to trust in the process, that if you start talking to people in your closest network, your warm contacts, you'll find that people know people, and you'll be surprised that, you may not know someone right now, but in a few, in 10 minutes or 20 minutes of having conversation with your supervisor or a couple of more people, they may know someone who plays tennis with someone, who married someone who works in the industry that you're interested in. And you don't know them because you haven't started having conversations, all right? So step one, start having conversations, and then find ways to warm up your cool contacts.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome, no problems. All right, I'm just having a look. A few people have had to go. Tips were helpful. I'm just racing through the chat there. Okay. All right, awesome. Well, ladies and gents, it's past 1 o'clock, and I know I told you we would be on from 12 to 1, so thank you ever so much for your time. We'll send out some information this afternoon and look forward to seeing you all at the next HDR Careers offering. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgia.
Welcome.